is this new covenant, this covenant of the heart, is it something that is totally free, something that asks nothing of us? Or does it require a response? I want to go back to verse 3. It comes slightly before Jeremiah speaks of the new covenant. And I think it's a foundational one that leads up to it. It's a building block that points to that covenant. Verse 3 says, I have loved you with a love that lasts forever. And so with unfailing love, I have drawn you to myself. In Hebrew, it doesn't have that to myself explicitly, but it's implied. But most literally here, what God says is, I have drawn you. That word drawn shows up in other stories as well that can help us get the sense of it. In Genesis, Joseph was drawn up from the pit. In Exodus, a trumpet sound draws out for a long time to announce that God is present there. In Judges, God draws the people toward a mountain and a river. In Song of Songs, a king draws his lover toward him. Later in Jeremiah, the people draw Jeremiah up out of a dungeon. Through all of these, God is constantly drawing people in the direction of love. They might resist it, and yet God keeps on drawing them. That's the promise of covenant. That love is always there. It's written in our hearts. So much can get in the way of it. The Bible tells story after story of that. And yet we're invited to remember. We might never get it quite right, and yet the Bible invites us to remember again and again, to let ourselves be drawn into it again and again. We can begin again and again. We can turn toward it again and again. That's the thing that I keep landing on, that God's grace comes first. It's unearnable, it's the foundation, it's the air we breathe. And while it's free and unearnable, it draws us out into our truest selves. As we receive it, it draws us toward action, it draws us toward response. It's a foundation that gives us ground and space for caring for one another, for living into that love of God and neighbor that God calls us to.